Welcome back to another Coffee and a Chat and a Survival Saturday edition. So today I wanted to talk about finances. It's one of the most important things that we can talk about. It can make us or break us. And so I know that there's a lot of people that have just kind of tried to work through the financial changes that we've been going through the last few years and trying to just kind of make it until everything goes back to the way it was. And I think some of them are figuring out now that that's not what's going to happen. That isn't how it happens in life. When you get old and you've had some experience, you understand that, when gas prices start going up, that even if they come back down a little bit, it's just kind of a tease. It's going to go back up and even more. That people, if they can make more money, they're going to make more money. And so, those prices are not going to come down. And yet there are people who think they are. And one of the things that has horrified me is I have been, trying to figure out how, because I know how we've been affected. And then I know other people that they just keep doing everything they were always doing at a higher price, and and still going to the grocery store and getting everything they would normally get and not cutting back and not making adjustments. And I'm like, I was puzzled, how are they doing that? And I knew some of them were on fixed incomes. So how are you doing that? Because there's not more money coming in. Well, then I had some people, and I've overheard some conversations of others that what they were doing was taking credit cards and maxing them out to, because they were just trying to buy enough time until things would go back to normal, and things never did. And now they're in a world of hurt. So I know that there's a lot of people that are financially really in a very, very bad way. They've dug a pit they can't get themselves out of. And I know that there are others that they just are spending more each month. They make really good money, but they just keep spending more to try to keep up the lifestyle that they've always had, or that they've been having and that they want to keep. And wisdom, I'll tell you, is that you make adjustments and recognize that you're in a financial crisis. Even if you've got that extra money right now, you're not going to have it later. And you don't want to keep building a lifestyle you're not going to be able to maintain. But instead, you need to adjust your lifestyle to what you can afford and to make it work. So I was listening to a guy talking about this, and he's like, he thinks that the wise person always lives below their means. So if you make $4,000 a month, you never spend more than $3,500. Oh, what would it be like to make $4,000 a month? Yeah, don't make anywhere near that. So, people that only maybe have $2,000 a month and then live on $1,800, so that you can always be putting $200 away. You make $1,500, live on, $1,400, so you can always put $100 away. I mean, that is a great idea, and that is something that Marvin and I used to do. But after a while, you get to where you can't cut much more out. You can't be doing that. So you have to come up with other things, other ways to bring in a little more income or whatever. So I know we just sold the vehicle because we needed to sell the vehicle anyway because we need to cut back. And it was very hard for Marvin to make that choice. But he knew that's what we needed to do. Plus, half of the money from that vehicle is meeting a need that we financially would not be able to meet any other way. And it is a need. So that's something being taken care of. But I just, I thought today we're going to talk about finances and just look at some stuff. And I made some notes because I have not been able to think of words this week. I have been forgetting things. I've been very tired. And when I get tired, it's just makes it harder to keep a clear mind. So I did make notes so that I can hit the points that I felt were the most important. So the first thing I want to say is if you do not have a budget, you need to get a budget. You need to make a budget, and then you need to stick to that. And so if you don't even know what a budget is, say you have $2,000, then okay, so how much is your rent or your house payment? Say that's 1,000. So you take that 1,000 off, and so now you have $1,000 left. How much is your utility bills on average? Say it's 200, you take that 200 off. Now you got 800 left, and you just keep doing that, going through everything, your groceries, gasoline, and when you've got a real tight budget like that, whatever's, if there's only $50 that you've got left to divvy to something, and that's got to do your gas and groceries, it's going to be kind of tough to do. You better find some food pantries, but that's how you've got to do it. So you either lower other budget lines, not by just lowering it so you can put the money somewhere else, but I mean, cut your expense there. Cut down on that electric bill so that it's not so much each month. Cut down on your water bill so it's not so much. Don't drive as often and as frivolously. Plan your outings so that you can go hit all these stores that are right around each other, not making separate trips, not going every day. So you bring down the need for how much money you need for fuel or whatever. That's what making a budget is, and then you stick to it. And when the money's gone, it's gone. And Marvin and I, we have done that. I have been a budget person since I was a little girl. When I got my first job, even like babysitting or whatever, I budgeted that money. And I didn't just have it in my pocket to go do whatever I wanted, but I tried to be wise with it. And that, I'm going to credit that to parents that were amazing with finances. They knew how to live on next to nothing and take care of their family. It was not easy. And there was a lot of sacrifice that was made, but they lived that way, and they taught us to. My parents, long before, who is it, Ramsey or whatever, is that the guy that, and he tells you to put money in envelopes? My mom and dad were doing that way before him, and so was I. So even now, I have an envelope system. So our cash is in different envelopes, that it is designated for. And that's part of our budgeting, is to try to stay within that. And sometimes we have to go rob, an envelope to meet an unforeseen need. Now, that's not like going out to dinner or getting DoorDash or, we don't do any of those things. It's not to go to a movie. It's not to, buy this pair of shoes that I think is so cool. In fact, I need shoes. And I'm just dealing with what I've got. And I'm saving up my money into a little budget thing, into its envelope. And when there's enough to buy a pair of shoes, I'll get a pair of shoes. Until then, I'm making do with what I have. And, that is living on a budget. And like for us, I mean, we have to. That we can't, go outside of those lines. We just can't, because we have nothing extra to work with. So that's the first thing I would say, is figure out what your expenses really are. What do you really spend each month? Where can you make cuts? And how does that money need to, and be divvied out each month? And then discipline yourself to do it. The next thing, very important and scriptural, the Bible says that we're not to owe anyone anything except to love them more. And if we do lend out money, we're to do it at no interest. We're to actually help our brother, help our sister, and know that don't lend out something that you have to have back, because sometimes that person doesn't pay it back, or they can't pay it back. And so you need to be prepared for that, and not be sitting there all angry and now we can't eat this month because we lent out our grocery money and they were supposed to pay it back and they didn't. And yeah, you got to be responsible for yourself financially. So if you do lend something out, no, it might not come back. If somebody lends you something, you better pay them back, especially if you're a follower of Jesus. It's terrible witness not to. So don't add debt. Don't borrow money. Don't take out loans. Start figuring out how, if you want something, then you got to save the money for it. And if you don't have enough money for it, you don't need it. You may think you need it, but you're going to have to live without it. Again, a strong discipline, which is going to take us to the next thing, which is what debt you do have. And this one, please listen to me. Pay it off as soon as you possibly can. Make it a focus, because the more debt you're carrying as things continue to decline, the more danger you're going to be in. I was looking at, I love statistics and things like that. And so I found this statistic on from more than one source. So, and it blows my mind, but I understand why it's true. So I've asked some of my kids this, to see what their answer is. So do you know what the biggest demographic is right now in America of people that are becoming homeless? And I know one said, well, young kids, because they just don't want to work. No, that's not it. Somebody else said veterans, because they're not getting the help they need. There are a lot of veterans that are facing homelessness, but it's it's still not the biggest demographic. So the biggest demographic of people that are going homeless right now, and this has been true for quite a while, are people 55 and over. People that tend to be on a fixed income. They're just living on, Social Security, or Social Security plus maybe a small pension or a small savings account that they've got to supplement it. Because there's not enough money to meet their needs. And even though with Social Security, we get this cost of living allowance each year where they up, or pretty much every year, where they will up it a little bit, to cover the cost of living. Yeah, when you now getting $20 a month more, it does not even come close to keeping up with the cost of living going up. So it's a little bit, and like if you're on Medicare, usually whatever your little raise was ends up being eaten up with the increase in Medicare. So it's very easy to understand why there are so many people 55 and over that are, well, the lucky ones are living in their cars. If they don't have family to take them in, the lucky ones are living in their cars. Others are on the street. And to me, that's a shame. We're doing something wrong. But honestly, Marvin and I have a Suburban, and, and that, we've talked about that might be the next vehicle that needs to go. And I am trying with everything in me to hold on to it, because I know we could live in that if we had to. We could have a very comfortable bed in the back, and there'd be a room to put a little kitchenette in there. We could do it. And we put an engine in it here a few years ago. It should take us quite a ways. It maybe could do us for the rest of our days. But, when you stop and think that you're in a situation where you're actually thinking along those lines, that my Suburban is my backup plan if I was to lose my home. Never thought I'd be there. But it is the reality for too many people. Now, I don't think we're going to have to live in the Suburban, but if we have to, praise God, He'll take care of us. So pay off your debt that you have as soon as possible. If you've got credit cards, get rid of them. Pay them off, get rid of them. Credit cards are a terrible trap. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I've known a lot of people, well, I pay it off every month. Well, you know what? Now they've gotten to where they can't quite afford to pay it off every month. And so they're carrying a little bit. And then next month they're carrying a little bit more and a little more. And that interest will eat you alive. Again, you're using borrowed money. Not wise. And even the Bible tells us not to do that. That is not a good thing to do. So one of the things we did when Marvin was still working is one of the biggest interest devourers that costs so much money in interest is a mortgage, because it's not just, it's compounded. So each month adds to what it builds up to the end of the mortgage, that you keep adding interest on the money that hasn't been paid off on the principal. Now, if you pay a little extra on that principal each month, you can devour payments on the other end. So when, with Marvin and I said, let's try and put it at an extra $100 each month, or $200. And when he was working, that wasn't a problem. I mean, we still had to make some sacrifice to do it. But when he saw that within a few months, we had knocked 5 years off the other end of our loan, and tens of thousands of dollars that we would never have to pay in interest, well, then he was like, okay, I'm in. And he started, hey, here's, even if it was just $5 more. And the further you are, the closer you are to the front of your loan, the more money you're going to save. Now, we're almost to the end because we paid it way down. And we have paid years off our mortgage. So we just have if we were to never pay an extra dollar more, our mortgage would be paid off in 3 years. But we still, even if we only have $11, the last couple of months, we only had $11 we could throw on that mortgage, but we did. And so it saved, that $11 actually added up, with interest and everything, to save us, I think, like $18 or $19, whatever it was. Not quite double anymore, because we're so close to the other end of the loan. But it adds up, and then the next month it knocked that much more. And so here, in a few more payments, just paying that little bit will knock another month off that a payment we won't have to make. And so we're watching the end of our mortgage come closer and closer to us. And the amount that we owe on our mortgage is getting smaller and smaller. And for us, that's a great feeling. We get excited about it. We keep a thing on the back of our bedroom door that shows how much we owe, and it has the months that are left. There's like a ladder, and it shows each month that we still have to pay. And then below that are all these months, all these years. In fact, they're in more than one column because they're longer than the door, that we have knocked off the other end. So, we keep that there to keep us remembering. And there's been some times where we've had some extra money come in, and, and Marvin, has been like, oh, I'd like to get this little thing or whatever. And I go, okay, so do you want to get the little thing? Because, it might be like $25 or something. Do you want to get the little thing, or do you want to pay it off on the mortgage? And then he's like, I'd rather pay it off on the mortgage. I kind of get more pleasure out of watching that come down than I do, let's get this house paid off. So, it's kind of, actually for us, it's fun to watch those little bit add up. So now we're at a point, like I said, sometimes all we can do is $11, but Marvin gets little jobs on the side ever so often, and he mows lawns for some people. And so he supplements our income, because what we get with Social Security and what little retirement we have left. I mean, his retirement's gone. I have very, very little retirement left. And it's, that's what we have for a backup if he doesn't make enough money otherwise to supplement, because we still need, a little bit more money each month just to meet our basic, house payment, electric, propane, and garbage, and, our expenses. So, I'm not talking about buying shoes. I'm not talking about going to the grocery store. I praise the Lord that we do know of some food pantries that we can go to when we can't afford groceries. I praise God for that. Do we always, do you get what you want always? No. Do you get a lot of mac and cheese and pasta and rice? Yeah. Dried beans? Yeah. But I'm thankful for whatever we can get, because there have been times when that's all we've had to feed us. And so, I guess in here I'd say too, maybe I'll just add in that if you got pride about things like that, drop it, because odds are you're going to need the help. But sometimes you might need to do a side job. I know some of my grandkids were having a problem. They were a little short for their rent. And so they go out and they do DoorDash. And, and it doesn't take but, a few days, and they've got what they need and they can meet their rent. And so they're learning to be creative, because even with jobs, they're having a hard time making ends meet. Yep. All right, so you might look into, and I know when you get up into our age group, it's a little more difficult to do those things. And I know I've got some health issues that I've had for a long time and most of my life, but they are getting worse the older I am. And it would interfere with me being able to hold down a regular job. Now, maybe if I could get something that was like, remote from home, I maybe could make it work. I don't know. But I have a stomach that goes upside down on me at times. And when it does, yeah, see you later. So that's just being kind, saying it like that. But, we have challenges. And I used to be able to work around those challenges by starving myself. I just wouldn't eat until work was completely over. Doesn't matter anymore. I never know when I'm going to have an episode, and I have them almost every day. So it does interfere with a lot of things. And but on the other hand, I have had things that, I could put on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, because Marvin has, he has a Facebook still. There's a few things that I can do. And so we've had some stuff, some furniture we didn't need anymore that, we've sold. And if it doesn't sell, or I find somebody who needs it and needs the help, I just give it to them. But, there have been some ways that I have been able to generate some things. For a while, I had a bunch of antique stuff. And so I had an Etsy shop that I was able to sell, like antique jewelry and stuff out. In fact, my mom and I did that together. And, so there are things, if you get creative, you can find ways to bring in some extra money to get these debts paid off, to meet your monthly needs, whatever. So you might need to look at a little side hustle. Now, the other thing is, and this is still something that Marvin and I have to really look at, and that's knowing the difference between a need and a convenience. And we went, we saved up so we could get our dishwasher fixed. And it ended up costing more than we thought it was going to, but it was, the labor was under warranty. If we'd had to pay for labor too, we wouldn't have done it. But it still was quite a bit of money. But now, I've got a full house of people, and it's nice to have a dishwasher. But in truth, Marvin, he was going crazy to get the money to do this, because he's like, this is a need. You don't need to be standing at the sink doing dishes all day. But in truth, it's not a need. It's a convenience, and we talked about it, how even growing up, I was probably 11 or 12 before we got our first dishwasher. And it was one of those portables that you rolled it around and then you plugged the hoses into the sink. And, they weren't built-ins yet. And a microwave, we don't need a microwave. My mom didn't even have a microwave till after I was married and left home. And I didn't have a microwave until a couple of years after that. She bought me a little one for my birthday. And, we don't need those. And some of those things aren't even good for us. But we start thinking we can't live without it. Oh, what would I do without this? Even a refrigerator. I keep thinking about, it's been just a little over 100 years that people have had electricity in their homes or running water. There's a lot of things that, they used to have ice boxes, and, and there are people that have gone back to that now. They have an ice box and they get because you can still get the ice that you need to put in the ice box to keep things cold. And you don't let things sit there forever and ever. I was talking with one of my daughters yesterday about how breakfast used to be whatever was still in the ice box from last night, and you ate it up. And then it wasn't until, these companies started coming up with cereal and stuff and wanting to market it. So they started telling you, you need this for breakfast. This is a breakfast food. There was no such thing as a breakfast food. It was whatever was in the ice box or in the cupboard to eat. That was what you would break your fast with. So we have gotten our mindset, a lot of it, because of what other people have marketed so they could make money. And we start believing these things, that we have to have these certain things. Don't have to have them. You can live without them. And people have lived without them longer than they've lived with them. So finding out, really taking an honest look at your life of what is truly a need and what is just a convenience. And conveniences are nice. It is nice when, to be able to load the dishwasher and let it do the work. But even my washer and dryer are conveniences. They're not needs. I could still do laundry without them and have. So that's something that you have to look at, so that you are making sure that the actual needs are being met before you go after a convenience. And then your monthly expenses, getting them as low as you possibly can so that you can live below your means, knowing that prices are going to keep going up. You're going to have to keep making those adjustments. And, like for Marvin and I, one of the things of cutting our monthly expenses, and we don't have car payments, because we pay cash. If we don't have enough cash, we don't need the vehicle. We don't go out and buy new. We don't do any of that. And we've gotten past, it doesn't have to be a fancy car or anything. It just needs to run well and get us from point A to point B and do the job we need it to do. So when we were looking at, we knew, I said, hey, there's been these increases. Do we keep this or do we let go? Our internet went up to where we couldn't afford it anymore. And yet we feel that, as we looked at things, it was better to let a vehicle go than to let the internet go, because while I would have to get creative on how I would upload to YouTube, I've got a neighbor, maybe she'd let me go over there a couple times a week and use her internet, or but most of our bills and stuff, I don't even know how to pay them without the internet, because that's how they want it paid. And there's got to be some other way, but it's like, okay, it's going to be easier to let a vehicle go to cut those monthly expenses. Plus, we need that money to come in because we had a big financial need that would take care of that. And then the other would help us catch up on some other things, and put a little buffer there. And, and it was just like trying to be wise. So we let Marvin's little truck go. And, and it took care of that, but it knocked down our monthly expenses with insurance and tags, and it knocked it down more than what the increase on the internet was. So we actually were able to then keep the internet for now anyway, and then let have some to kind of help make up the difference of how big our deficit is each month. It's not as big now. So we don't need as much money on a weekly basis to meet that deficit. So for us, that was a wise choice. So that is something else. We used to have, cable TV. We had to let that go. We used to have a lot of subscriptions to, and they're only like, $5 for this or $6 for that to watch different things online. We had to start letting those go. And because it adds up. I mean, there are some times, because our phones have gotten more expensive, and I'm also, like, okay, we may need to let one of our phones go, and it'll be mine, because Marvin, his is more important for people to get hold of him if they've got to, need him to come mow or, dig up a tree stump or whatever, because that's income for us. So, I'm like, I might have to let it go. And my grandson was like, how would you do that? Although he's had to let his phone go for right now. He's going to have to figure out how to get one back because he needs to have a phone. He's an adult and he needs to have contact with the world in ways that the world can contact him. And so, trying to help him work out a budget and get that all figured out. So, yeah, sometimes we have to let things go that is a huge inconvenience to let it go. But you adapt and you go on and you find a way. So those are some of my wise points that I would share about getting your finances to, be workable. But to those of you that are followers of Christ, I want to remind you of two other things that I do believe make a difference because we are told to do this. And so here goes. Because I don't know, well, the first one, a lot of ministries and churches will tell you you're supposed to honor the Lord with your finances. So tithe to your, to the church you go to, and a tithe would be 10%. And that is coming off Old Testament laws on giving. The New Testament is basically everything I own belongs to the Lord, and it's as you purpose in your heart is what you're supposed to do. So we are to honor the Lord out of our finances. So when I make a budget, the first thing I do is this goes to God. And so that, I believe, even though it's a lot of money when you start adding it up, or especially when Marvin was working, it was a lot of money. It was thousands of dollars that we gave off the top in a year to go to the Lord. And, and we gave that to our church. But I believe it made all the difference in the world because God takes care of us. And I don't give to the Lord because he takes care of us. I give to him out of thanksgiving of my heart for what he's given to us. So I always give a portion back to him. Now, the other thing that Marvin and I started adding here several years ago is then our second budget line is what Marvin calls it, the God Fund. I kind of refer to it as our ministry money, but it's another portion of our income that we give to help somebody else in need. And even though, so years ago, a friend of ours, a widow, needed a roof really bad. And she didn't have enough money. When she got the quote, it was like, what am I going to do? Well, Marvin and I, in our envelope, back then it was when he was still working and stuff, so there was more in that envelope than maybe, overall than what there is now. But we were able to take $1,000 out of that and help her out. And I remember at the time my dad wanted to, my parents wanted to help her too. And so they added to that. And anyway, as the Lord provided, he gave her the money she needed to get her new roof that she desperately needed. And now that roof, it'll do her the rest of her days. She doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And so I can just say, and I couldn't say that the money was from us. And, anytime we've been able to help somebody, we've had other people, we've been able to help people out of work and whatnot. And the Lord's told us, their house burnt down or whatever. And he's like, I want you to go give them, this amount of money out of the God Fund, out of the ministry money. I want you, that's what it's set aside for. I want you to take that. There's even been times we said, you take everything that's in that envelope and you help that person out. And we may not even know the person. I remember walking through the grocery store one time, and the Lord was talking to me about this family that was in there shopping, mom, dad, and the little kids, and that we needed to go give them $100. And then, and I'm like going, that is so weird. Like, am I really hearing from you, Lord? And just about then, Marvin comes over. He goes, you see that family over there? I go, yeah. He goes, I keep feeling like the Lord's telling me we need to give them $100. I go, I do too. And I don't even know if they need it. And he's like, it doesn't matter. The Lord's telling us to do it. So do you have the envelope on you? I'm like, I do, because we carry it. Most of the time we would carry it with us because you never know when God's going to say, help somebody. Right. And so I had it on me. And so we took there was $100 in there. We took it out and we went over, Marvin's like, look, I know you don't know us, and this may seem really weird, but we're Christians, and we both feel the Lord telling us that we're supposed to give this to you. We don't know why. It doesn't matter, but we just need you to take this. And Marvin was able to put the money in his hand, and he's like, oh, no, no, no. And we're like, we have to because God told us to. And he goes, oh, I have a job. We don't need it. I think they did need it, and I don't think he wanted us to know he needed it. But we're like, that's great. Then, if maybe God told us to give it to you so you could bless somebody else. We don't know. It doesn't matter. We just know we have to be obedient to God. And then we gave it to him, blessed him, and walked away. And honestly, it's kind of fun to do those things. But we can't say that the money's from us because it's God's money. It's not ours. And but I also believe, as we've been faithful, because there's been times that there's been more money in that envelope, enough to do what we needed to do, and then some. And yet the Lord told us to give that money to somebody else because that's what it was for. That's not our money. That's his money for them. And so all of these things take discipline because it can be very tempting, I know, to try and take matters into our own hands. And that's very convicting, even as I say that now, because I know that is, there are times when that's a struggle to really be disciplined and do what God's asked us to do. But as a follower of Christ, I believe that as I am obedient to him, because, just doing those things, then the Lord will bless us, will meet a need that we had. And I'm thinking, if we hadn't been obedient to him, would he have done that? So think about it. Again, read your Bible, see what it says, understand it for yourself. Don't just take my word. But just want to encourage you in that. So I got to go. This ended up being a long one today, but money, it's time consuming too, isn't it? All right, you guys have an awesome day. And I just want to mention this. Yesterday made 1 year that I've been on YouTube, and I wanted to make a video, and all kinds of things were going on yesterday and the day before, and I didn't get a video made. But those of you that have been with me for this year, thank you so much. The numbers, it's not why I do this, okay? But I do find it, delightful that on the first day a year ago that I put up my first video, I got 7 subscribers, and I remember just being so excited about that. And yesterday, when the day came to an end, I closed the day out after 1 year with 290 subscribers. So that was awesome. And if you're one of those subscribers, thank you. Thank you for being here and listening to this crazy old woman and her wackadoodle ideas sometimes. But I may still go ahead and see if I can't get just a video up about celebrating 1 year that God's given me on YouTube. And anyway, thank you all for those of you that have subscribed, that have shared the videos, that have left comments and hit that like button. All those things help my channel get out there for more people to find it. And it's not because I'm trying to get rich off YouTube. I'm not even close to being monetized. I don't know if I ever will be, but that's not what it's about. But being able to share the things of Jesus Christ. And these Survival Saturdays, they may be little dopey things to some people, but for other people, it has made a change in their world. And so whatever can help another person or encourage them in the things of Christ in their walk with him, or even just to share Jesus with people that don't know him, because I have seen people come to the Lord from the stories I've shared. It started them going, I think I need God. And then as they began to seek him, they found him, and now they know him. And that's why this channel's here. That is the reward. If there's any reward for it, that's it. All right. I love you guys. I gotta go. Talk to you later.